Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George and you're listening to the weekly movie show with the boys Connor and Benny.
Hi there.
Well folks, thank you so much for tuning in. We've got a monster show this week, plenty of trailers later on. We've also got some headlines. Avengers Endgame box office results is in after the re-release, and it's not looking so good. Plus, we've also got some stills from Netflix's The Witcher and a few trailers later on, including Jumanji, The Next Level. Damn. We're going to the next level here, guys. It's crazy. It's crazy. But hey, as we always like to do, we like to catch up on what everyone's been watching. Connor, why don't you fill us in, sir?
Okay, so I was looking for something to pass the time on Netflix this week, and I noticed that Shaq came out on Netflix, which I'm not sure if that was originally meant to. I think that was a New Line production that must have gotten nabbed up by
I'm going so
Netflix.
blank on
What
this.
is it?
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal? Like,
Yeah, like the basketball.
Oh, wait a minute. Well,
Baller.
oh, shit.
Got his mic. Start again.
Can we actually start again?
No, what are we talking about?
I'm trying to think of the name now.
Oh.
What is it? Describe it to me.
I don't want to because now I'm gonna.
Throw me a line.
It's gonna be
I'll
bad.
pull you out. Uh-oh.
Please don't.
oh my God.
The one with Samuel Jackson.
Shaft.
Shaft.
And what was that, like 2001?
No, the one that just came out.
Who? What? Really?
Is that a thing?
Should we start again?
I don't think it's the one that just came out.
Oh my
Just give me a second.
Oh my God.
Oh no!
Sitting here not doing anything.
It definitely is. 2019 Shaft. Oh,
They're both called Shaft, though.
maybe it is. I don't know. Shaq. God
Did
damn
it have two other Shafts in it?
It had 3 Shafts.
So it had the young Shaft, who's
Yeah.
his son, and the grandpa
Yeah.
Shaft.
That came out this year
Yeah. How'd you see that?
on Netflix.
Really?
It just came out. Yeah.
It came out like last week in the States.
Did it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Netflix.
There we go.
Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I wasn't meant to get. I was the only person in Australia. Anyways,
how was Shaquille
And they tried to wipe your memory clearly, but it didn't quite take.
because I realized that, like, just as you were doing the intro, I kind of realized, like, Shaq? Like, that doesn't sound right. But, like, okay. And then I looked up Shaq, and it's like, The Shaq. I'm like, no, Shaq. Shaq.
What did we be watching
Shaq.
this week, Connor? The Shack. And Jenny and I are just like, searching
Okay,
memory. banks.
Rare that
Jeez.
Connor's watched something I haven't heard of. All right.
So, Connor, how was Shaquille O'Neal, the animated series?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't really want to talk about Shaft either, actually. Look, this.
Come on,
I
compose
don't-
yourself, sir.
I don't want to say it's a bad movie, but it was a bad movie.
Everyone else did, yeah.
It was a bad movie. Yeah, look, it's just not good. It's they did not. I mean, just the premise alone, like, you know, releasing a Shaft movie in 2019 is going to be like walking on eggshells as it is. And I mean, I don't think that they did a particularly. I think they did an all right job of kind of navigating a lot of the subject matter that kind of surrounds Shaft in general. But they landed on this kind of weird middle ground, which I don't necessarily hate, but it just seemed like oddly executed. Like, the entire film, you knew that they had to arrive somewhere that wasn't going to offend absolutely everybody. And you were just kind of like watching them duck and weave the entire time.
Yeah, the trailer looked like a lot of like trying to be like, oh, you can't do anything without offending everyone today, but in the least offensive way possible.
It felt like that. It didn't really take a stand either way.
Yeah.
And didn't even particularly, you know, sit on the fence very well. It was just, you know, Samuel Jackson being like, "You're a pussy," and the other guy being like, "No, I'm not."
It's 2019. We're allowed to be now. It's
Yeah,
fine.
exactly. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, so that was kind of, it was weird watching that play out, because I was just kind of being like, how are they going to fix this, or how are they going to, you know, address this or anything like that?
Have you seen any prior Shaqs?
Shaq's. Have I?
I think this is around the 4th in the proper series.
I thought it was 3rd.
Well, there were a couple in the 70s starring Richard Roundtree. Then there was the 2001 like kind of reboot. I don't know how connected it was at the time, and then they've kind of woven them together with this one.
Yeah.
Then there was a TV series. There might have even been a couple more, but it's funny because
I'm not, and this is why I have such a weird kind of feeling about this. Like I feel like there's a joke that I'm not getting.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's why I'm kind of a bit edgy with this film.
Yeah.
You know, I'm assuming that people that have, you know, kind of come along with the series may get a little bit more enjoyment out of this.
No, I think they'd like it less.
Okay, good. Yeah, all right. So
Tonally, this is not where the series has ever been.
Okay, yeah. Which again, it felt like a muted version of what little I have seen of Shaft in the past. So yeah, that was a weird experience, to be honest. I just at the end of it, me and my girlfriend kind of looked at each other. We're like, did we enjoy that? It's like we kind of laughed a couple of times, and then that was it. It was that kind of laugh. Like, and the only other thing that I watched was All Hail the King, which is something that you've been trying to get me to.
Finally.
I
Wow.
know, right? Sorry, it's taking me so long. That's like what,
Okay.
from 2014 or 16 or something like that? It's
Yeah.
ages back.
Yeah.
Little 15-minute YouTube video that accompanies Iron Man 2.
So
Three.
it's a little short film sequel directed by Drew Pearce to Iron Man 3. It came with the Thor: The Dark World Blu-ray.
Oh yeah, I watched this a few months ago.
Marvel one-shot about Trevor Slattery, the fake Mandarin.
Yeah, and a super cool little like I I'm really surprised that it hasn't gotten more hype.
It's so cool. It's my favorite film in the MCU.
It makes sense.
Honest to God, it's so
It's
well.
such a
It's
cool
so
little-
cool, well directed.
Yeah. And it honestly makes, there's a lot of people that were a bit iffy about Trevor Slattery, about the Mandarin reveal and that kind of thing. But honestly, this almost makes it all worth it. Like it's just, it's such a cool companion piece. And so I really highly recommend it.
Brilliant cameo for like long-term MCU fans
Yeah.
in there as well. The version on YouTube, I don't know if it's still up. Is it? Did you see it on YouTube?
Yeah,
It has like Mandarin subtitles, which somehow helps the experience. Like it adds to it. I
Don't
think.
think the one that I saw had Mandarin
The one I
subtitles.
watched a while ago.
Yeah. But yeah, very cool. It leaves you wanting more at the end of it, and I'm really curious as to whether they'll just leave it like that or whether they'll explore that further down the road.
The MCU will live forever. They'll get around to it eventually.
Well, that's the kind of thing. I'm assuming that if they ever run out of ideas, they'll just pan off to that. But yeah, that's what I've watched this week.
Cool.
That was eventful. Try and get through it with less,
nice.
fuck ups than me.
Hey, I'm going to jump in next because I think you're going to like this one, Benny.
Please.
I watched one of your picks from last week's best and worst of the year so far, Lords of Chaos.
Oh, cool.
Dude.
Because he's a metal
Intense,
guy.
huh?
Dude. Like this has a murder scene in it that is so hard to watch.
Yeah.
It is one of the most intense. Like I went into almost like shock afterwards.
Because of how kind of real it is. Even it's not gratuitous or like overly gory necessarily.
No, it's not. It's not gory. It's just like how real it plays out and the dark, like the nihilism.
Yeah.
But it's just I was watching the film and I was like, man, this guy looks heaps like Kieran Culkin, eh? And then I'm like, the credits come up and it's like, oh, it's Rory Culkin, his younger brother, who did an amazing job.
Yeah, loved him in that.
I thought he was so perfectly cast in it. I couldn't really imagine anyone else in this. And
Which
then,
is so interesting because of where it's set and what it's about. Like he doesn't seem like with his like California or whatever accent, but it works so well.
Yeah, it works really well. And Varg, who plays off him, man, like the story, it's a really, really interesting story with a lot of layers about like fandom and believing in something and, is something something for show versus something for like something you believe in and that's something that's your truth.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating piece. And, I actually, if I'd seen this, I would have kicked, spoilers, I would have kicked the wind out of my top 5. I probably
Nice.
would have made 5th position. Could have even been ahead of Us because that
Very
is,
nice. I'm glad
Is it
you
really
dug
that
it.
good?
I was so impressed.
George is a metal guy, so it's really up his alley.
It's fucking dark, man. Like, but there's moments of humor. I can't really say what it is about this. I might even have to watch it again, but I'm almost scared to watch it again.
I get what you're saying. Like movies that deal with that level of nihilism, they kind of sit on a knife's edge where it's almost indescribable how they pull it off. Because, you can go down to that level of nihilism and just, I find that a lot of movies, I watch them and I kind of get that eye roll. I'm like, okay, we get it. You're trying to be, deep and...
The great thing about this movie, though, is that it deals with that nihilism without succumbing to it. It's not promoting nihilism. It's not, it's about nihilism, but how seductive it is.
It's kind of examining it. And there's a scene, there's like, this isn't really a spoiler, but one of the band members in Mayhem, which is this film's focused on, commits suicide in the film, and you see Rory Culkin's character revisit this scene, and his response to it is kind of embellished on, and it's a really, really interesting examination of dealing with that scenario. And then, yeah, man, like I really was impressed with this. I thought it was just like, I don't know. I think a lot of metal purists are not a fan because I think it bends some facts and it's not a full retelling. But I was so impressed. I can't say I enjoyed it, but I was enthralled and I couldn't really turn it off.
Nice, good to hear.
Yeah, so nice one.
Anything
Nice
else?
recommend. No, that's it. That's it, fam.
Cool.
Other than Spider-Man Far From Home.
Yes, which we'll be talking about a lot later.
Check out the review.
I watched one of my most anticipated films of the year, Danny Boyle's Yesterday. This is, the Beatles film that just came out.
No, the Beatles don't exist.
The Beatles don't exist, but then they do through plagiarism. This movie was, I guess, ultimately a disappointment because it was fine to good, not the... Like, this was probably my most watched trailer since Logan, to be honest. I don't know why.
Yeah, I can see that.
What?
Yeah, so weird.
There's something captivating about that trailer, though. It was like, it was happy. It had the music. It was kind of...
Himesh Patel in the lead was so charming in that trailer alone, and he really carried that through to the movie. So there was really a lot to like about this movie, and if you just want to go in and watch a really kind of simple, nice story, it's written by Richard Curtis, who's did Love Actually and a bunch of rom-coms and stuff. So it's kind of fluffy like that.
It's right in my eardrum hole. Drum.
Nowhere near your eardrum hole.
Can't believe Connor just climbed over the couch and coughed right into George's ear.
Excuse me, sir.
A lot of people are kind of taking issue with this movie for the ways it doesn't deal with the actual ramifications, the butterfly effect of taking something as substantial as the Beatles' discography and removing them from pop culture history. I felt going into this movie that was just not the focus at all, so that didn't matter. And to me, going in that way, it dealt with it more than I expected and in some kind of funny, interesting ways.
That's interesting. I mean, like, that's not something that I would have gone into that film and like criticized it for. I feel like
I think you absolutely would have, knowing you going out of this movie. No, because this movie
the world building for this particular film was very subpar.
God, for anyone not watching, that was actually George speaking, not Connor. That was amazing. Because what this movie does is, towards the back end, it really brushes over the fact that if you released the Beatles music nowadays without the context that helped create it, it wouldn't suddenly just be like the biggest thing that's ever happened in music. Like, it wouldn't have the same place because it's a very complicated thing. This movie just throws that all under the rug for the most part, and I think you absolutely would if we were sitting here doing a review of that movie. I really think that you would be bringing that up.
I think that when I think about it, if you're going to do a mechanic like everyone forgets the Beatles, you can afford to give this movie quite a bit of rope.
I can't wait till you see this movie.
Come back.
We're doing a review.
Bullshit.
Yeah, I have an issue with there's some inherent magic quality to these songs. Like, they're obviously incredible songs, but they came right place, right time.
Yeah, so that's not a thing that really bothered me in the movie. I can see why other people would not necessarily love it. For me, just some of it, bits and parts, just kind of fell a little flat. But the parts that worked were really terrific. Ed Sheeran in particular was a very funny fictionalized version of himself. I enjoyed more than I expected after his Game of Thrones cameo and such.
Yeah.
Anyway, that'll do me for the week.
Cool. Benny, I'm really liking your new look, man.
Thank you. It's a different color for me, this shirt, but I think it's going over well.
Mauve.
Yeah.
I believe it's called
Maroon.
No,
All right.
Mauve.
Burgundy. All right, on to the news. First up, following up from last week, Avengers Endgame has fallen $24 million short of topping the all-time worldwide box office record after its re-release just this last weekend. So this is not the end for its box office. It'll still continue on in drips and drabs for a little while, but
that's it, man.
That it's been pulled from every theater in the world.
Yeah, that's what.
Well, more or less.
That's the box office police said.
This was their big push.
Yes,
and they kind
exactly.
of wanted to make the 40 million. They kind of had to make the 40
So they went
million.
from about 38 million, to 24. So if they can't do it with that,
that's bad.
That's it. That's it. I think we got to call it at this point. And I think that really speaks to how kind of pathetic this attempt was.
Super lackluster.
This is the worst case scenario for them. They brazenly went almost off brand with this re-release that was showing just unfinished product and just a very clear cash grab. And they didn't make it or even come close.
Yeah.
So that's a real kicker.
It's a real pooper right at the end there, you know?
Yeah. After this
It's
success
I
story.
can't help but feel that they should have either gone big or gone home. And I mean, I think that's what we all felt
Yeah.
a little bit beforehand. I think they should have really broke the mold. They should have released, substantial, footage, either, in the film, or like I don't know how they could have done it, or done something original, like you spoke about, George, the other day, about doing like a double feature somehow.
For anyone wondering, we mentioned this last week, but now we have complete confirmation. The extra footage added to the movie was, like we said, there was a Stan Lee tribute, which was just some behind the scenes footage. There was a Russo brothers intro, and there was the deleted scene was just a Professor Hulk introduction scene with completely unfinished CGI.
His mouth wasn't even moving.
Mouth wasn't moving, just or half unrendered. There was fire. It looked terrible, and it was just a very simple kind of jokey introduction to the character before the diner scene that we actually got in the film. The general response to the entire re-release has been very negative from people who did see it and people who didn't see it. I know I sound like I'm coming across as overwhelmingly negative here. Worth mentioning, I guess, the movie itself was a great success a couple of months ago. Everything has gone great, but this last kind of, and it's a shame. This is the cap to the
I was
going to
say, what a sour note to finish on.
Exactly,
it's just that's not the way that you want to. It could have been justified if they broke it, like if they broke the record, and then they were like, no one cares about how you got there. You got there, but for them to try this and fail, that's
pretty
just
rough. Yeah, not a good way to finish this Infinity Saga.
I think that people that might have seen it, like if they had just said, this is the last weekend you can see it, I reckon that people that might have seen it would have not seen it because they're like, oh, the gimmicky side of check out some extra footage.
But I mean, what are the general consequences of this? I mean, yes, Marvel look like a bit douchey.
Oh, no one will care.
And they kind of douched their way to the end. But like, it's not like they've sort of really messed something up. It's
they
not
haven't
like
done any damage long term.
They haven't done any damage.
No.
Exactly. So yes, they've done a goof up, but hey.
And also Feige has been so out there in the press being like, nah, Spider-Man is the end of the Infinity Saga. This is the end of phase 3.
Yeah.
So even after that, they've still got this little.
And we'll
this little
see
bit here.
if it does get a bump this week with Far From Home being released, because we saw that with Captain Marvel.
Yep.
Got a little bit.
24 mil though, that is a stretch.
Yes.
Again,
Any other countries? Antarctica?
it's still yet to open in.
Yeah.
I keep saying they should have just funneled the money through. Would have been worth it. They probably would have saved money on this re-release.
Funnel the money.
Anyway, in other Marvel news, set photos indicate that Marvel's Black Widow film will be set in 2017 between Civil War and Infinity War, and we've gotten a better look at a villain who is speculated to be Taskmaster. So the first point there, we've got some set photos from a highway in an Audi, I assume, that is a 2017 model. So that's not a huge amount to go on, but given that she was pretty much dead directly after that, it's safe to assume that this will be set in 2017.
Yeah.
I love how people figure that shit out.
People take this shit very
Complicated.
seriously.
Well, the biggest tell was just the fact that earlier indications, people had kind of speculated it was going to be set in the 90s. So that was just a big, clear, obvious, no, this is more of a modern day thing. So how do you guys feel about them just kind of slotting a movie directly into the modern MCU here? Like just pretty much putting it right in between a couple other ones?
I think it would have been cool if they'd gone between Winter Soldier and Civil War, because Black Widow, I feel like, was a lot more fully formed by that stage.
But you don't mind them just putting something right into the slate, like just directly in between movies that we've already seen?
No, but I can see there's a lot of potential problems that can happen if they don't do it well.
I mean, like it's not one of those characters where it's going to break things. I think that Nat can go off and do her own side mission with little or no consequence to the overall MCU.
Exactly. Doesn't that feel a little, I don't know, wasteful in some way? Like
it does.
Like
a
it
little.
feels like if they really wanted to just do that, they should have just put that movie in there already. You know,
I'm more talking about them. I guess messing with some kind of continuity, which I don't think is an issue. In terms of wasted opportunity, I do think that they had a chance to kind of give her a little bit more impact. And like, unless there's something that we're not seeing, like this could be really clever where something happened maybe in Endgame that was only possible because she's done something and, so just something that we're not thinking of. But bar that, I think that this is a wasted opportunity for them to go in and maybe look at, some other things that she could have done. Like
The
areas
prequel
where there's,
idea
like,
would have been cool.
it would have been, yeah. I mean, I'm so torn because it seems like such an obvious choice, though. Like the really obvious thing to do is do a movie that happened kind of before the main events of the MCU that focuses on her and maybe how she met Barton and Budapest and all that kind of stuff. Like that kind of seems to
Very
be
Solo.
Yeah, it seems
in
like
a way. But then at the same
easy.
token, this Black Widow goes on a mission. Hopefully we get some kind
Feels
of
like a
thread
waste.
in this that explores her past. Because if it's just kind of like a mission, I think that's a wasted opportunity because I'd like to see that character fleshed out a bit more.
They didn't have an awful lot of success going into her past last time. That might be an area that they want to stay away from.
still holding on to the 1% chance that this movie is not a prequel in any way. This is a sequel to Endgame. There's a lot of cosmic shit going on.
Yeah.
Anything is possible in the MCU. We all know this. Like, I think there could be something really fun and just really mold breaking in taking where that character ended up and moving forward with that.
We'll talk about this more in Spider-Man Far From Home review, but I'm getting this nasty feeling that things are starting to spiral out of control for the MCU in terms of continuity. And having this slot in between films, another thing I was going to say is like, I mean, how is this all going? Like the MCU's brand has been built on like, yes, maybe they haven't got it right all the time,
but it's all connected.
but it's fairly like 85% of the time it's working, 70% of the time it's working, or
But they've slotted
effort's
things
there.
like the way that they've released the movies hasn't been chronological by any means.
But they did for a long time there for.
Yeah, but it's not breaking the mold for them to kind of slice and dice where things happen. Like they've even been
What
pretty
they've done,
cagey about.
like Captain Marvel was set, effectively between the first Avenger.
So Captains
and
America and Marvel were like the big ones, and there was Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was also like one step back. But everything else was pretty much
Doctor
chronological.
Strange happened before.
Doctor Strange is nebulous. There's
Yeah,
no one's
but that's-
really
that's
pinned
my-
that one
that's-
down.
that's-
over a big,
But also
large point
inconsequential.
of
It doesn't
time.
matter when that
Yeah,
was.
but that's kind of my point.
Several years.
This
happens
is
over
not.
several years.
But
This is
this
not
one, we
breaking the
know
mold.
so much of her journey on either side
Yeah.
of this. Like Doctor Strange was a new character just plopped in wherever.
Yeah.
This is like she has a very charted path,
I mean, that's a fair point. I just think that, if they stick to the mission style, there's no breaking of continuity. There's no risk
I guess
there.
I'm not even worried about continuity necessarily. It's more just that they've done so much work with that character, and with Endgame, that was the culmination of that character. It's like, what are you going to go do now? Is it going to be something really important that'll enrich what has come before, or is it just going to be a side mission thing that is inconsequential anyway? So it's like
It
Lost
has
opportunity.
to feed back into her past somehow.
they have to. Not only do they have to justify making this movie, they have to justify why they're only making it now and not when the character was alive and everyone wanted them to make this movie like 5-10 years ago.
This was like, way back in the day, this was one of the most called for movies that I remember. When they did announcements for Phase 2, I remember people being bloody fucking outraged that Black Widow didn't have her own movie.
But
So you're right. Like they've got a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah.
But so she's going to be post Civil War. She's going to be with Captain America. Like they're trotting around before they meet everyone in Infinity War. They meet Scarlet Witch and Vision in Scotland.
Yeah, and we don't really know.
And so
anything that
she's going to
happened in
go hang
between.
out with Captain America.
That's absolutely not going to
piss
happen
off
in the
for
movie.
a bit, and then come back and be like, "Hey, Captain America, I'm back."
Yeah,
Like, I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's part of me where I'm like, well, listen, I am not putting this out like I'm dismissing this at all. I would just
totally.
on initial inspection, I feel as though a prequel would work better. However, let's see what happens in the cinema and call it then.
Speaking of initial inspection,
No,
how are we
call
thinking
it
about
then.
Taskmaster?
I'll call it in the cinema, Ben.
Okay,
All right.
that's probably a good idea because costumes always look bad on
Yeah.
first inspection, and this one's no exception. It looks like a Power Ranger,
It's pretty blurry,
and not
right?
one of the cool original Power Rangers.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to see.
There's a few other good shots in there. I've got a few links. It doesn't look anything like Taskmaster. I don't think that's been confirmed, but everyone's just kind of saying it, so whatever. But it really looks like a Power Ranger.
And
Does, doesn't
why is that a bad thing, sir?
No reason, George. Sorry. I'm sorry, sir.
Jeez.
Where is he? I saw him the other day, but
Yeah, maybe the photos have been down. They're all leaks.
No,
Yeah.
I've got him up here.
Thoughts, Connor?
Sticking out of a
can I have
little.
a take a look?
I mean,
I guess
don't think
I'm
I've-
coming at this from knowing Taskmaster, who
Yeah.
has a very cool costume in the
I
comics.
don't think. I don't know how to do it, Roger. Get your own functioning thinger. I am always wrong when it comes to looking at costumes early
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Shazam looked fucking ridiculous when we saw the first photos of him. He looked like weirdly inflated, but he looked great in the film. So
It looks exactly the same, but they made it work.
yeah, well, I think that's kind of my point. Like,
Yeah.
it's so hard to
Yeah.
to judge from
Contextual
these like
and this-
weird, blurry set photos. So, you content, George?
He does look like a Power Ranger. I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh well. Next up, Aladdin passes Independence Day at the global box office to become Will Smith's highest grosser at
That's
824 million.
insane, man.
Yeah, Will Smith, once the king of blockbuster films.
You know, like that's back in the day when it was like it made 500 million at the box office.
Yeah.
Like I was reading today, you know, stats from Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2's opening weekend, I think, was the first movie to ever hit 100 million.
Yeah.
And you know, like we're getting Toy Story that's like did 140 million. We're like, it's a disappointment.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a different era these days.
although,
and
ironically, the overall revenue for this year is 10% down than from last year.
oh, for real.
Yeah, so they're making
believable.
less money, but it does seem as
Well, not
though
compared to 2002
well, probably yeah.
necessarily.
But I mean, it's a weird thing to see after you have something like Endgame, which has like broken every record in the book, apart from one.
Mhm.
I mean, probably not surprising when you look at all the other blockbusters and how they've performed.
It adds
But-
credence to the idea that, you know, the $60 million movie's dead. You know, it's either 5 or 10 million or it's 200 or 250 million, you know? It's a few fucking whales that are making the lump sum.
It's meant to be this year. It's like
it's
a
been
couple dozen of
Endgame.
them. It's feeling a little bloated.
No,
But,
but which one's actually done extremely well? Dark Phoenix bombed, Men in Black bombed.
Totally,
You
but
know,
I mean,
they all bombed. You know, it's like Endgame. That's the one that brought in the lion's share. You know, the spikes. You know,
Well,
they're
even Toy Story then as well.
yeah, Toy Story as well.
and Aladdin, a movie that we had all written off earlier this year for any number of reasons, and this is just once again proving that Disney is unstoppable and they own us all.
Yep. And
You're not far off on that, to be honest.
just wait for your like Google car to come pick you up with your Disney Plus subscription, and we'll just be
Your
living
Google car. Google is not owned by Disney.
No, but those two
It will
companies
be.
will own everything.
was
Connor's
like-
like George thinks Google owns Disney.
How
An idiot.
are you feeling? How are you feeling about Aladdin, Georgie? You're
Oh,
the
bro,
big cheerleader
masterpiece.
for it. Yeah. Still happy.
Like that is, I think it beat Chernobyl.
Did you watch
I'm
it?
redoing
but
my
I
list.
Did you
do-
watch it
I
a
do-
second time?
No, fuck
I
no.
do want to hear what you
Fuck
think of
no.
it now, like, a couple weeks later.
You know,
Go ahead.
Yeah, like it's fine.
Stop
it's
saying
not.
you know.
It's not one of the worst of these live actions, and there's actually some really good banter in there between Will Smith and the lead, and those scenes I thoroughly enjoyed. It's fine, and there's enough of the main songs and whatnot for me being a fan of the original that it kind of gets it over the line on nostalgia alone, pretty much. But I can't say it's a good film. It's fine.
So you were initially pretty chuffed on it, and
I've never
now
seen
it
someone
is.
look so uncomfortable while reviewing it.
It's
Well,
fine. It's fun.
Yeah, but now it's one of the highest grosses of the year, and I don't know. I really don't think Disney is doing well enough with these remakes
To justify it.
creatively, financially. Obviously, they're just going to keep happening because Dumbo was a nice stumbling block. None of us saw that. I don't
No.
think, but
Honestly, and this is I don't like wishing failure upon people or things but I genuinely hope that Lion King bombs, because on a creative level that movie really bums me out.
mate, I reckon if anything in the next 10 years is going to overtake Endgame, that's probably it.
Oh, please no.
I know that is easily going to be the second highest grossing film of the year. If Aladdin can do this.
Okay, should we just stake dinner on what Lion King's going to make?
Not by your shitty rules like last time.
What was my shitty rules like last time?
What was it? Family Feud rules or
We
whatever
were
it
going to
is.
shout it
How
out at
else
the
do you
same
do it?
time.
Not like that. I hated that.
Exactly. You fucking lost.
I'm not going to make a bet. I'm saying second highest grossing film of the year is either.
All right, listeners, I'm going to put my bet in at 1.3 billion. 1.3 billion.
1.35 billion.
We didn't play the game though, so it's all
1.31 billion.
good. Yeah. 1.3000000001.
Next up, Paul Rudd has joined the cast of Ghostbusters 2020. So this is the latest news in our
So this
not
is the one about
reboot
kids,
sequel.
right?
This is the one about kids with Finn Wolfhard, and supposedly all the old cast returning as well. This is apparently he's playing a teacher in it.
Cool.
Is that it?
Wow.
Yeah.
Are you guys?
And you didn't want to put the Sandman story in.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Are you
man.
guys excited for this? Do you guys have any?
No, I
strong
honestly,
feelings?
that's a nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
nothing for me.
the only thing interesting about it is this movie is trying so hard to be appealing, whereas I guess the last one was as well, but in the other direction. Whereas this is really like they are so specifically being like, no, this is the boys. This is the boys Ghostbusters again. This is a sequel to the original ones. Melissa McCarthy is nowhere near this. We're actively trying to piss off that cast.
Do you get
Not
that sense?
starring.
It really seems like they're trying very hard, which, it's PR. Of course they are. That's the right thing for them to be doing from a marketing perspective. But they're very clearly trying to position themselves as like the proper sequel to Ghostbusters.
Wait, Ghostbusters, the 2016 one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. Thank you, George.
Are you here tonight, George?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah,
Hey,
you good?
welcome. Welcome to the podcast.
All right, next up, we've got a new poster and some stills from Netflix's The Witcher. I'm going to pass right over to Connor here because
Yeah.
I do not know dick about Witcher.
Game of Thrones 2.
No,
They hope.
But see, the more that I think about this project, the more that I see stills or concept art or anything come out of it, the more that I have a feeling that this will be terrible. And I
Damn.
really hope that I'm wrong, because I think that there's such a cool world to explore in The Witcher.
I will put in my 1 cent because it's
Yeah.
all I have is I think Geralt, yes.
Geralt, yeah.
He looks much better in this than that initial thing we saw.
Oh,
Just
totally.
that wig test or whatever it
Yeah,
was.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this looks substantially better than I was expecting, particularly after that initial image that came
Hiccup.
That, I mean, yeah, that like for me, it's a really weird feeling, because he looks a lot better than in the test screenings, and like I can kind of see this being pulled off. But the more I think about someone trying to create a solid narrative in this world in a TV show format, like there's something about the medium of books and games that allow you to kind of explore in more depth than you normally would. And you have to,
Or in a different way.
well, no, like there's just, I think that there's Depth as in, you can in a book you can know what people are thinking in a very intimate and like precise way. In games you can explore worlds in very, again, intimate and precise ways. Like you can go into backstory
in your own way.
In your own way,
you can get as much backstory as you want if it's there.
Yeah, and you can spend 400 hours, like particularly in the Witcher games.
Yeah.
You can spend hundreds of hours just going through and reading books and exploring different areas and finding out about the overall mythos of this world. Like, you can spend a lot of time and figuring stuff out. Whereas a TV show has, well, let's say it's 10 episodes, 1 hour long, which is like, that's a long time to tell a story. That's only 10 hours, right? And that, to me, the more I think about it, the more that worries me.
Is not having any familiarity with the franchise at all, is there a way that they can make this show and it could just be very focused on this character and the world kind of grows around him, and but it's really about him, so they can just spend all this time on that?
Yeah.
Would that do the world service in any way? Like, is he an
It's
interesting
really hard to
point in
tell
that?
because I'll be honest, I haven't read the books and I've just played the game, and he's quite, I don't know that I'd say one-dimensional, but there's a very kind of specific, kind of character trait that he's the gruff, very kind of straightforward person, and kind of unyielding, and that's cool when addressed or when confronted with things around in that world to him.
Yeah, when you're playing as him.
Yeah, in comparison to him. If you have to kind of just focus on him as a character, then I don't know how they're going to do that.
How much depth is in the well. Yeah.
The other thing that kind of pissed me off is that he's in all these photos, he's only got one sword. And one of the key characteristics in the game and in the character itself is that Witchers have two swords.
One sword for monsters and one for peoples.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep, I've already heard this complaint. Funnily enough,
yeah, well, yeah,
in a cursory glance. But I heard someone say that someone else might be carrying the other sword for him. Does he have like a page or something?
No. I mean, like in you look at any of the games, he always has two swords, and that's how you identify. So that to me, that's such a weird thing that they would take such an iconically
maybe
the
he's
staple
going
of
to
the character.
He's going to become the Witcher.
The last episode is when he gets the other
and
sword.
He gets the sword, and he's like,
no, but
he's got the second
fuck
sword.
you, Netflix.
No, like no, never mind.
Yeah,
I'm
and then Henry Cavill's going to be like, "Listen up, you Witcher fans. You should listen to me. I was going to have the second sword.
Also, he's got the wrong. Now I'm looking at this again, and it looks like as though he's got the wrong medallion as well. Like that's there are some. This is getting super nitpicky, but I guarantee you, all the other Witcher fans are doing this exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
There's two really iconically stylistic thing, or that was almost a sentence.
Iconically iconic.
Stylistically, there's two things about Geralt and Witchers in general: is the medallion and the two swords, and they have neither of those things.
The white hair.
Well, and the white hair, yes. Sorry.
1 out of 3 and
1
bad,
out of 3
baby.
and bad, yeah.
Back at my
Beethoven once said,
back at my uni days.
Beethoven, Jesus, meatloaf.
Alrighty.
How do you get Beethoven and meatloaf mixed up? Next story. Jesus, man. I am not firing off today.
All right, next up. Let's move along. Mike Flanagan, patron saint of the podcast, is helming Midnight Mass for Netflix. A 7-episode series about an isolated island community that begins to experience miraculous events and frightening omens when a mysterious young priest arrives in town. So this is part of a deal that Netflix has struck up with Mike Flanagan after the success of Haunting of Hill House, which we all loved, and I hope you did too. And so he's back for a sequel, a second season to that series, and another series here as well.
Yeah, The addition of a second season worries me. Maybe I'm just feeling in a pessimistic mood today, but as opposed to all those other days that I'm real cheery.
You mean for Haunting of Hill House, the Haunting of Bly Manor?
No, this what's it called? Midnight Mass. That I just don't want him to take too much on his plate and then dilute the quality. Like particularly the big thing that was going through my brain was when are we going to watch the fall of Mike Flanagan? Because I don't think I can handle that.
Yeah.
But just the statistical likeliness that someone's just going to pump out quality content consistently.
I don't think he has been. I don't think he's hit everything out of the park.
Totally. Yeah.
Like what's the one, the dream one with the butterflies and all that? Before I Wake.
Before I Wake, yeah.
Like that's definitely not
but
an
he's been
all-round
on a roll
success.
recently.
I liked
Totally.
it though, and also he's a complete workhorse. Like he's been knocking something out every year.
He's been like
for a
under
while
the
now,
radar, the dark horse, working away, honing his craft. I think what I'm finding most interesting about this is the fact that I think he's really enjoying the medium of TV.
Yeah.
Like it gives him that much more opportunity to explore these characters, and that's what he does so well. Is he doesn't do just shock, gore, horror. He does characters first, and then he adds the horror layers to it, and that's why he's so successful and why I love his style so much.
Yeah. So not knowing much about this beyond that little blurb, all I can say is good on you, Mike.
But he's, in terms of Haunting of Bly Manor, he's just a producer on it, right? He's not.
I'm not sure.
I thought he was showrunner.
I thought he was just producing it.
He directed every ep of the first season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did.
Mm.
Yeah.
I'd be
I'll take your word.
surprised-
I'll take your word for
Yeah,
that.
I'd be surprised if he wasn't directing. For some
Mm.
reason, it feels like I don't think Netflix would take the risk.
Let me just quickly check that up.
Yeah.
Haven't you heard he's got another series on the way, Connor?
I'll check that up and then I'll jump in.
Alrighty. Well, finally for our little Netflix corner, they have announced that they're adapting Sandman finally in series form. Neil Gaiman's Sandman. This has been in the works for quite a while in many forms. Just very recently, we had Joseph Gordon-Levitt signed on to be in this.
That was like 5 years ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, but you know how those things string along for a while.
Yeah, these it's crazy how long this one and Why the Last Man. I feel like those two comics have been in adaptation hell
And
for
the Crow reboot.
and the
I was
Crow
about to say the
reboot.
Crow, yeah.
Well, at least the Crow has been made one time.
Mm.
You know, these other ones, I'd really be keen to see this.
Mm.
I'd really be keen. I've read the first issue of the Sandman. It's really out there. It's Neil Gaiman as well. He's a pretty sort of he's an interesting writer, and then it's whenever his stuff gets committed to screen in the right way, it's enjoyable to watch.
Mm.
It doesn't happen often though, I feel.
Yeah, even when he's writing it for the screen, I found a lot of he's had a couple of Doctor Who episodes that I didn't think really captured his voice perfectly
Okay.
either.
Okay.
Mm.
How you feeling about this, Connor?
Yeah.
There we go. Then that's the end of the news.
Did you find that info, Georgie?
No, I've actually given up, man.
All right, well, what
So-
time is it instead of that?
It's trailer time.
All right. So we've got quite a few trailers to run through this week. First on that is Charlie's Angels, the reboot.
Mhm.
Did you guys watch the? Well, I was gonna say original Charlie's Angels, but any
The
of the
2000s one, the
Yeah.
Cameron Diaz one.
yeah. Did you guys watch any of the Charlie's Angels, like the series or
Yeah. Yeah, but like not the old, the original, just
But the 2000
the
ones.
the McG movies.
the McG
Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cameron Diaz, Lucy Liu,
There's
Drew Barrymore.
two of them?
Charlie's
right?
Angels and Full Throttle, yeah.
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 What did you guys like? What was your?
They definitely have a place in my childhood.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's probably about the most accurate, way to describe them. Like at a time, in a place, they were.
I mean,
Great.
as
Yeah.
I watched
as
them
someone who would have
once.
been like a 10-year-old boy, I was the perfect audience
Yeah.
for the most dumbass action movies that are
Yeah.
so male gazy.
One of the weirdest things is I forever associate Firestarter with Full Throttle. It's like it's a weird thing. Anytime I hear that, Prodigy song.
The Prodigy.
Yeah.
I think of that Pink song. I'm
I think of the
Yes,
Beyonce. What
Oh
what
yeah.
were they called? Destiny's Child.
Man, those
Okay.
are some big campaigns, huh?
Yeah.
And they were like,
Mm.
everywhere.
Yeah,
They were huge.
I really enjoyed that first movie as a kid. That will forever stand in my mind as the introduction to me of Sam Rockwell, who I
Yeah.
thought watching that movie was the coolest guy in the world, and still do to this day. So well done.
But I didn't see them a ton of times. It
Mm.
wasn't like one that I've probably only seen each one time. It's not one of those ones.
I've
that
seen the
was-
first one a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that one.
Crispin Glover, man, he is so good in that
Yeah.
movie.
That scream.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's haunting.
Anyway, what about this one? This looks like the 90s is fully back, you know?
Yeah, so those original ones were very, like, flawed as they were in their execution, were very, like, pop feminist, you know, like girl power sort of movies. So it feels like not the worst time to be trying to do that again. But this execution, man, this trailer is like a lot of not much.
It kind of, there's so many scenes and things happening, but nothing's actually happening.
It feels like really polished and very clean and very
Polished
like,
it so hard, there's nothing
there's
there.
nothing left. Yeah, exactly. And I hate sounding like someone that's just going to jump on the bandwagon of not liking Kristen Stewart, but there is something about when she talks, like it's so unconvincing. It feels like someone is trying to it feels like someone in there is trying to, you know, use her face to express emotion, but like someone that doesn't know how faces are meant to work.
It seems like such an odd project for her. I honestly didn't mind her in the trailer though, and also Naomi Scott I loved in Aladdin.
Casting.
One of the things
really
I did
good
like.
casting.
So.
It's just the direction and the what is this movie actually about? What are we exploring here? It's like they're driving in cars and they're shooting shit and
Say what you will about those original movies. McG really does have that kind of explosive Michael Bay. Like there is something about a McG movie, you can tell it.
Yeah.
And it does stand out in a way.
That in-camera style that doesn't really age.
Yeah. Whereas this feels much more like a TV show or something.
Yeah, the way this is shot just feels like, to me, like really 90s, 2000s look to it. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't feel as current.
I feel like this,
not in a bad way, like in almost like a nostalgic homage, maybe.
I don't know what it is about this trailer that just, like, and the word that keeps jumping to mind is just overly polished. Like it feels like all straight edges and
squeaky clean with no soul
and a thing. And yeah, that's got to be it. Like, I mean, again, say what you want about those original Charlie Angels films, good, bad, or indifferent. Like they at least had something, like some kind of hook. So I suppose they were good or bad, not indifferent.
I was trolling the comments for this one, and everyone was making the same point. Like, who is this for? Like the like 12-year-old massive Charlie's Angels 70 TV show fans that need the reboot. Like, it's one of those weird ones that just felt like an executive really kind of forced it down the line. Someone mentioned that they should have done a Totally Spies live action movie instead. Do you guys remember that show?
I love that show, man.
Yes,
wow,
just a dumb old cartoon, but fuck, that would have been more fun.
Show.
Yeah.
I need to get back on that.
All right, moving on to speaking of the 90s, Jumanji, The Next Level. Was Jumanji from the 90s? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Good.
And then
Excellent.
2017 as well.
So this is Jumanji 3, technically.
I can't tell you how much I don't want to see this. Like, there are
weirdly
some funny
fascinated.
parts. There is some comedy happening with The Rock playing an old guy, and they've got certain ticks.
Just a quick bit of context. We were much cooler on that last film than pretty much everyone else, I feel.
Everyone
that was
frothing
a
on it.
runaway success. That was a huge worldwide success, and most people were really happy with it. I wasn't expecting it to be that good kind of way.
Yeah.
And I was definitely positive on it, but not that positive.
I very much agree. It was surprisingly funny. It had some really cool moments, but as a whole, it was kind of like, more or less that's what you'd expect.
This looks fun.
But I mean, that's the annoying thing. This seems to have like really cool aspects to it.
I can't not be all in on a movie where The Rock is playing Danny DeVito.
I know. I'm like, it's just
so good on that. That's
I feel like
Kevin Hart being Glover is brilliant as well.
It's funny in the trailer, but can they sustain it for our entire film?
Totally. And honestly, if they do as good a job as they did with the last one, which I'm saying is not amazing, I'm saying that will be kind of enough to entertain me for that time. I think it was decent. My main disappointments were like being a childhood fan of the original. I really don't think they turned the world of Jumanji, which we never saw in the original film, into anything interesting or sinister,
was just a jungle.
like it really
Yeah.
seemed in the first one. Like there's that scene in the original movie that Robin Williams has where he's describing the feeling of like being in this jungle at night while something you cannot see is feeding near you and just being terrified. I'm like, that is so evocative and creepy. And the actual thing was like, yeah, it's just a video game.
But that's the kind of pitfall of a horror film or of kind of the unknown, because it's always going to be creepier when someone describes something that you can't see, and then when you see it, you're like, okay, I get what it is now.
Totally.
So
But they
just a
definitely
jungle.
could have done a better job than they did.
you'd hope, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, look, this will be something that I will eventually watch. Maybe not in the cinemas, but and I'll probably get the same level of enjoyment that I got out of it in the first one.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's all they need for that little check. So
Enjoy it, fellas.
yeah. Number 3, we've got Jacob's Ladder.
Now, this is so interesting they're remaking this, because this is one of my favorite films, man.
And it
Really?
is completely almost unknown.
I love this movie, dude.
Yeah.
Like 1998, 1996, Tim Robbins, really, really creepy.
Pioneering. The imagery in this movie has shocked me more than almost any movie in terms of just how actually disturbing and terrifying it was for a movie that I'd pretty much never heard about.
Subway sequences, the bat in
Yeah.
that cocktail party.
Yeah.
Like, there's some iconic
the
imagery
hospital
in
that
here.
he's like getting wheeled through. My God.
Like, I am such a fan, and I would be really down to see a remake. And I kind of like how they're doing something different here.
Yeah.
Not sure if it'll be successful in the end, but I'm kind of into them not doing the same thing again. But there's still little tidbits where you see the little demon in and it's like, oh, okay. They're little touchstones that there's a little bit of overlap. But I'm kind of excited for this. I don't think the trailer was all 100% great, but this could be a really like a nice 7,
Did seem
8
to
out
drag
of
a little
10
bit, didn't it?
kind of horror film.
Yeah,
horror thriller.
horror remakes get a bad rap because 99% of them are shit.
Yeah.
So
It's like not undeservingly.
Exactly, yeah. And this could absolutely be that again. But they're doing something that when it comes to remakes, I think is interesting, is taking something maybe less well known and doing a different spin on it, just taking a few elements from something, the interesting kind of premise. Because, the original, for all of its strengths, like narratively, I can see where people would come at it and be like, okay, I'm not so sure about that.
It's somewhat indistinct, like in terms of like it's not conveying, it's not laying it all out for you kind of movie.
Totally. And it could definitely piss audiences off, I could imagine. And I would be interested to see how this one's going to go. But I cautiously optimistic.
I would put the original in like that same ballpark as Dark City, The Matrix, Existence, like all those 90s mind benders, 13th Floor, like all that shit. I fucking love that.
Yeah.
Like that little pocket of time is, I just love it. So I'm really excited for this kind of.
Would
purely
you
on that
be
alone.
keen if they did a remake of Dark City?
Yeah,
Yeah,
really, really.
Oh
keen.
my God, can you imagine how bad that would be?
that would be like
Get
shocking.
Denny Villeneuve.
Well,
on
that
that shit.
literally you
Yeah.
stole the words out of my mouth. I was like, if you're gonna get someone to do it,
Hello,
Except-
Denny. We are going to remake something.
Except for
Like,
that one thing. Can you imagine how literally every good thing about that movie would be stripped away, like
Yeah.
with the way they make them now?
Directed by Merc G.
oh god,
You got a soul. You got a soul. Sorry, forgive me. Forgive me.
so, Jesus. So we had a little bit of a Netflix conversation today. So why not continue it with Point Blank?
Which one was this one?
This is one with Falcon and Crossbones in it.
Ooh.
Oh yeah, I think the title is actually just blank
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really scream anything
at all.
Particularly unique or crazy, but there's something about that pairing of Anthony
It's a
Mackie
Connor
and-
movie. It's a
and-
Connor movie. You can say it. It's fine.
It's a what?
It's a Connor
Oh,
movie.
yeah, 100%.
It's like
it
a
is a Connor
mid
movie.
2000s Tony Scott, like action.
Do you not like Man on Fire?
I love it.
Action.
I know
You
what
just-
it is.
you just-
comedy.
I know what it is.
I know. I'm keen for this, and I like Anthony Mackie. So sue me. Fuck you.
and Crossbones. What's his name?
Frank Grillo.
He's awesome.
He did a really interesting interview. This would probably be about a year or two ago.
About Endgame.
No, talking about I think he did a string of films in China. He was really big as like a bad guy in China because China had this like string of like a common theme, like where a lot of Western movies have either a Russian or German or like a Brit as the bad guy, you know,
Very
they would
US.
have the you know, white guy from the US as the
yeah.
bad guy.
That's such a good gig.
It's so good.
And he says
And he's
like,
cashing in on that.
that's literally
man.
the interview is like, I don't give a fuck. Like I will I'll cash in and I'll be the bad guy. And they hired him for a bunch of movies around it.
He did a podcast around that time. It may have even been with Joe Rogan, honestly, where he was talking about how he was in Endgame, like just clearly spilling secrets that he should not have been. And someone
Oh, I
was
think I
like,
remember-
you
remember that.
can't be telling us that, right? And he's like, oh, fuck, they're never going to hire me again. and I was like, all right, I guess he's in Endgame.
Was he in Endgame?
Mhm.
Crossbones recast for Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
God damn it.
back to China with me.
Hey, you put in a fourth entry in on that one? Yeah, so this one looks kind of like The Losers. Or,
Oh, yeah, I was done with that one.
Yeah, no, I thought we were moving on.
Oh, yes.
We don't have to like. We identified that we watched it.
There was a lot of trailers
na-
this week. And
we
I was
name
like,
checked Anthony Mackie
trailer.
and Frank Grillo, and we're good. Next is the Peanut Butter Falcon, which is why are you laughing?
Well, no, it's just because we were just talking about the Falcon, and now I'm imagining the peanut butter Falcon. And I don't know exactly what that is, but I like it.
So this is a movie starring Shia LaBeouf and
Dakota
Fanning
Johnson.
That's it. I knew that. I think this got some heat at South by Southwest, didn't it?
Yes, and if there is one festival that's going to make me sit up and pay attention at South by Southwest,
Yeah.
anything that they say, I will absolutely take as recommendation.
So I was listening to this interview from Shia LaBeouf the other day where he was talking about this project, and it actually I saw the interview before I saw the trailer, and it kind of sparked my interest. I was really interested to see this. The trailer is incredibly happy-go-lucky. And George, you mentioned that like the music is like straight out of Walter Mitty, let's go have an adventure type shit.
Yeah, you don't really need at the beginning for it to come up and say, from the producers of Little Miss Sunshine. You're like, I know.
Yeah. It's
Ting,
like,
ting,
I get it.
bing, 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 we're so happy.
Called that.
And I'm like, listen, guys.
We get it.
The darkness inside. You know, like, I'm like,
George
this
was
is
fine
the-
until we
I'm like,
watched
put
this
on
trailer.
Lots of chaos, man. Fuck.
So this is obviously not a George movie.
No, but there is
There's nothing wrong with a happy movie,
I
man.
like the way they're doing the wide shots in this, kind of like that Wes Anderson sort of dollhouse thing.
Just
that-
let people walk across screen.
Yeah,
type
it's got
thing.
that real sort of indie vibe, and I'm always down
yeah.
to see that kind of film. So,
Are you?
especially if it's called Peanut Butter Falcon.
Shia the Beef he's had a very interesting career after his kind of explosion with those
Super interesting. yeah.
Transformers movies. So I'm always interested to see what he's picking. He's very crazy sometimes and has had some very public breakdowns and legal problems, but he's a great actor and he does some good work.
Yeah.
He's in it for the art now, man. He's seen the highest
yeah.
of highs.
I'm fascinated kind of looking at his life, and it's absolutely no surprise that he's kind of turned out the way he has.
Child star, man. It's evil. No kids should ever be in movies.
Seriously. Like genuinely.
It's the sacrifice that the people demand.
And he was so good, man. I still love Disturbia as a thriller. I still think that's a really cool little
I like the Rihanna
teenage
song.
thriller. Disturbia. That's a great song. That's a fucking
But yeah, just like
tune.
I would be really fascinated. You know how he did? He watched all his own movies from the beginning to the end.
Oh god,
I mean, he was crying the whole time.
live streamed himself.
Yeah. I would actually kind of be fascinated to watch his,
5-minute highlight reel. of
Maybe,
that.
yeah. That might be a little bit more
I'd
appropriate.
like to see a series of podcasts with him. I'd like to see not just one. I'd like to see long formats discussion because there's so
check
many
out this-
layers to this dude.
Check out the recent interview that he did. I'm trying to remember who, or what the platform was or what the publication was. Just it's over YouTube now. I think it's published in the last week, so you'll be able to find it if you look up Shia LaBeouf. It's like a 30-minute interview of him just talking with this guy in a park.
I'd love to watch that, man.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
But
I do get the sense
I
that
wish that kind of thing existed.
Yeah, he honestly he was. If I could pick anyone in Hollywood to have a conversation with, he'd probably be up in at least top 5 or 10. Because I just fascinated.
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, so next we've got Midway.
What's this one again?
This
Pearl
is
Harbor.
Pearl Harbor.
Oh.
The remix.
I feel so weird about this film, largely because it looks a bit dodgy in terms of the visual effects and the.
Why are you conflicted? Because it looks bad? Because it's by a bad director? Because it's going to be bad?
I was trying to be positive, Ben. I'm conflicted because I don't want to be completely negative, but
I didn't watch Pearl Harbor the first time they made it. I'm not watching this.
Yeah.
This looks like they pushed a CG budget way further than they should have.
What fascinated me was that they have like a pretty stacked cast for a movie that looks that bad.
Like I can't. I'm trying to conjure more memories about this trailer, other than the
It's got
dude
Ed
falling.
Skrein in it.
Oh yeah. Oh no.
Master of picking good projects.
Yeah.
This is
Nick Jonas
just
doing
a nothing.
another fighter plane film.
Yeah, I legit have nothing, man. I got nothing on this one.
Did you guys see Independence Day Resurgence? Roland
No,
Emmerich?
I didn't.
Possibly it might have been his last film.
Didn't.
Did you?
Yeah.
Was it
Was
bad?
that- was it as bad as everyone said?
Oh boy, yeah.
Who's allowing
Really?
this man to continue to direct?
Well, I think he makes money.
What's your take on that film? What happened?
Independence Day. I think the first one just had this weird resurgence of like popular reappraisal, even though it was never really good. And then he made a sequel that I don't think was all that distinct in quality from the first one. But everyone was just kind of took off the rose-tinted glasses and was like, oh, shit, we did not need that at all. Not to mention that the main character they killed off screen, Will Smith, which is never really works out for these things.
Should have brought him back for one scene. Come on.
Yeah.
One death
Or
scene.
just not done the
His
entire
photo
thing.
was in the background at some point.
Yeah.
We miss him, man.
What did
Midway.
we watch recently that had that? Oh, it was Men in Black. That's right. Like
Yeah.
the just
Oh, yeah.
terrible. No, never mind. The last one is The Current War, which is Benedict Cumberbatch.
Bit of nerd on nerd action.
Prestige 2. That's
I mean,
all I could think of.
There was
I'm
a
like-
scene that it was pretty much straight out of
Yes,
Prestige.
yeah.
And I love the Prestige. So hopefully this is a nice little accompanying piece because I love that. I'd like to, see that period in time.
Cool to find out
explored.
why Nikola Tesla got so jaded and turned into David Bowie.
Yeah. And lost that accent.
There's a little bit there. He just got better at
It was there. But again, like a really, really stacked cast.
Doctor Strange, Hank
Yeah.
McCoy,
versus
Spider-Man.
versus Speed Beast.
Speed.
Yeah. And Michael Shannon, my absolute favorite, who was the first one to pop up in the trailer. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh shit, now I'm interested. Because
Well,
all of the thumbnails.
I knew you would be. I knew that Shannon would get you.
All the thumbnails are like Benedict Cumberbatch, Tom Holland, and then he showed up. I'm like, hey!
What like talking about sitting down with a celebrity, I reckon Michael Shannon, I can't really think of anyone who would be more serious. Like he
No.
would look into your soul and just like
He is so funny, man. But yes, he is one of the driest people I've ever heard in a
Like-
podcast. You can't tell.
Like,
that he's just fucking with everyone all the time. It's so good.
bro.
Do you remember his interviews about like Justice League and Batman v Superman or whatever, where he was just talking about how disinterested he was with all that shit and like how they it was so good. Look them up. Look up him on BVS. I think
Because
It's
I've
so
loved
funny.
him since Take Shelter, and he has been one of those actors that has just gradually got bigger and bigger and bigger.
But he's never like hit that kind of A-list status, which I feel is such a shame.
Too weird.
He's kept the,
Yeah.
but I feel like he's had an awe of quality. Like he's kept the roles and the pedigree there. Like yes, maybe he had a misstep with Zod, but nobody ever said, "Oh, that was a shit Zod."
No.
People said, "Oh, that was a shit
movie.
movie."
That I mean, and I kind of agree with you in the sense that he's pretty consistently built up that quality around all his projects, and that's one of the things that kind of sparked my interest, and I knew would spark your interest, Ben, about this film, which was that if he's involved, I have this feeling that it's going to be good.
That's a very interesting story as well. So hopefully they do
Yeah.
it justice.
All right, should we cap it off with question of the week?
Let's do it.
This is from Logan Fox, our boy from New Zealand. Thank you so much for this question, man. If you all had, different opinions about Endgame over the last couple of months, is there a direction you'd rather see Marvel go in Phase 4 that they haven't touched on in the last 3 phases, e.g. horror, thriller, indie, and do they go... And do they go more Snyder whilst DC goes more Russo? I mean, that's scary, man. That's sorry.
So can I just answer that last part with no? They should not go more Snyder. Under no circumstances should they go more Snyder.
So what I would like to see is, and I don't think it's more of a spoiler to say that Far From Home has definitely, to me, feels like it's really pushing more of the teenage vibe in it, and maybe Black Widow is going to be more of the tech action, and then Guardians of the Galaxy. Like I would like to see them all, inhabit and kind of push out so that we can get a lot more variety in here. And I would like to see horror, but I just don't think horror is going to happen in the MCU, unfortunately. But I would love to see something down that alleyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking the same thing. To answer the question specifically, all of the above, you say that you don't think they'll do a horror. I agree, I guess, yes.
It's too tame.
But I would love to see them push further into that realm with Doctor Strange 2 specifically, because one of the things I was really excited about when they were kind of going into that world was the way they could get into all of this, demons and this dark supernatural world residing beneath the rest of the MCU. And there's such a cool just like cast of characters, with Blade and Ghost Rider and Man-Thing and the Midnight Suns, all this shit that they don't really seem to want to touch in their more mainstream stuff. That I would love to see them push, and not just that, but just all other genres. I'm really getting to the point where I'm getting a little tired out of this almost formless blob that is the genre of superhero movies.
It feels a little bit monochromatic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't push too far into action or romance or comedy or each one has their kind of more skill points in one area than the other. But I would really like to see them get more arch in those areas with different projects.
I kind of view this as electronic music, in that when you boil down kind of music to its really kind of core aspects, it's like people want a beat and they want like simplistic kind of forms and they want those repeated. And, electronic music is like, well, we're just going to do all those things really simply and we're just going to just fucking give it to you in its rawest form. And, there's oftentimes not an awful lot of nuance to that, but it's really effective. And so I feel like that's what Marvel has done. They've just taken like, what do people want out of films? Like they want a bit of action, they want a bit of romance, they want a bit of laughter, and we're going to make this like the base, everyone's happy thing, stamp it, here you go type thing. And it works. Like people walk out happy, like people walk out thinking they've enjoyed that, but there's no real challenge in those movies. I mean, the biggest challenge that we had was Infinity War, where they kind of subverted a lot of the expectations that they had previously set up and other movies have set up in that genre. But I mean, apart from that, it's like you said, Ben, it's a little bit monochromatic in kind of the overall scope. So, but having said that, I don't really see them, going too varied from that, because it works and it makes them money and it.
But what do you want them to do?
What do I kind of. Part of me doesn't want to fuck with a winning formula. Like, what's cool about the MCU is the connectivity, it's the continuity, it's the shared universe aspect. I think that's a really, it's a really fun aspect of this thing, right?
It's almost like a comfort, It's like when you're going into a Marvel film, you kind of know what you're going to get.
When you go home, particularly if you go
this
home,
won't be worse than a 5.5 out of 10.
It's like it's like an Oreo cookie, It's got that flavor that you love, and it's the same every time.
And you got to twist it, lick it, and dunk it.
Oh yeah,
going home to your parents, and like you don't go back to your parents for comfort food. They don't create like this big fancy French, maybe some people do, but like
your parents don't do that.
French people,
sorry, maybe, but like they're not making like this huge like creation that takes 20. Like they're making that comfort food that you grew up with, that was simple, that was easy. Like that's what I feel like Marvel is for me. Like that, it's simple, easy comfort food.
Connor, get your eggnog. Get to your trough.
Eggnog and trough? Where do you think I grew up?
Canada.
What? What do you think? What do you?
We've seen you at lunch. Eat your trough, Connor.
And fucking thinking like spaghetti bolognese. Thinking about spaghetti bolognese. You fucking heathen.
Get your poutine, Connor.
Get your goddamn poutine. Poutan.
Jesus.
So yeah, I guess the overall sentiment, Logan, is variety, but we're not holding our breath for it.
Yes.
And that's why we have other companies like the DC Extended Universe
Yeah.
for the trench. They're going down the horror route. We got the trench, mate.
Fuck yeah.
It's going to be intense.
Someone's got the guts to do it. The sheer insane guts.
Thanks for listening in, folks. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Give us a subscribe on YouTube. And hey, we'll be back next week. Don't forget to check out our Far From Home review as well. That's up right now. And we'll see you next week. Oh, no, Benny, you're flying out to
I'm leaving.
Japan.
This is all over. Yeah, I'll be gone for the next couple of weeks. Have fun without me, guys.
We're going to miss you, man.
No, you won't.
We will.
This might be nice. You might actually listen to an episode of the podcast now.
I wouldn't bet on it, but yeah. It's
Well, I said might.
slightly
I said
more
might.
likely.
You will.
Yeah.
Can we like add an effect onto the YouTube where he just like shimmers out of frame? Bye.
It gets snapped out.
Yeah, so now leave the frame and I'll crossfade it.
Yeah.
I don't actually do it because you'll be like, fuck, I gotta do the work now.
Yeah.
All right, folks. See you then, Connor. See you in a couple of weeks, Benny.
There you go.
Bye.